All right. So welcome to our Google Classroom training. We have today with us a lot of our ed tech team. We have Alicia, the Director of Educational Technology. Also, we have Jessica Sierra and Pam Rabin and Chris Garcia here, and they'll all be helping to monitor and support in the chat. And I'm Carrie Lane, a project specialist with ed tech, and I will be leading you through Google Classroom. And our team is really busy lately, so we have a lot of upcoming events you might be interested in. We have an AR/VR network meeting on December 11th. The registration is there. We also have our next Google Back to Basics, which is going to be on Google Slides coming up on November 29th. If you're interested in joining our esports network meeting, we have that coming up tomorrow. And we have an in-person accessibility open house that you can register for, and that's going to be on Saturday, December 2nd. Also, if you're interested in more events, we have our EdTech website and our calendar of events on this page as well. And the links to our Google folder of resources is in the chat. So within that folder, you'll find today's PowerPoint, as well as a job aid about Google Classroom and a student guide to Google Classroom. So what students see as they're utilizing. All right, so let's jump into Google Classroom. And we are really going to be taking a basic look at it from both the teacher and the student point of view. So you'll notice I have two different accounts for Google Classroom pulled up today, and I'll be modeling teacher and then I'll be modeling student for you. So this one is my teacher class, and walking you through how you even get to Google Classroom from your Google account. If you click on the waffle icon, you'll go into this classroom button. And that takes you to the Google Classroom page. And I have a lot of Google Classrooms going on, but we're going to focus today on our EdTech demo class. Before we get into that, there are some points that I want to make about the main screen for Classroom. So within your home page, you have all of your course cards. You can see them here. And within those course cards, you have a couple of different icons at the bottom. The first one is a little arrow that's crooked, and that takes you directly to your grade book for that class. You also have a folder icon, and the folder icon is going to take you to all of your documents, your sheets, anything that you've added in terms of Google content within your class will be filed in your Google Drive within a folder for that class. So those two are very useful go-tos directly from the home page. Additionally, if you're interested in moving a class, copying the invite link so that you can invite students, editing a class title, copying a class, which comes in very handy at the beginning or the end of a year, or archiving a class so that it isn't in your main classes, but it's in an archive folder, you can do that from that 3-dot more options icon. You also can see your calendar from this main screen, and the calendar gives you the option to see all classes or to hammer down to one specific class. And so you'll notice here that any assignments you've posted for your students will show up on this calendar for the specific class, or if you have multiple classes and you look at all classes, you'll see all of your classes. Also within our main page, we have this teaching section, and there's this to review button. And this comes in super handy as a teacher because it breaks down what you need to review for your classes. So how many students have done something and what still needs to be reviewed. You can do that for all classes at once, or you can do it for a single class. And then you can also see anything that you've already reviewed for your classes. If you scroll down, you'll find your archive classes. So if you archive your classes, they'll be there. And then you'll find settings. And these settings are for your classroom schema in general. So it's not for a specific class, but This is where you can change your profile picture, you can get to account settings, you can change the name if your administration allows you to, but most of the time you'll need to go in and check with your admin to do that. This is also where you can adjust your notifications. So some of us like to get notifications quite frequently. Some of us prefer it not to happen to us so often so that we can just go in and directly check. So you can adjust your notifications throughout this page right here. Before I move on, I don't see any questions in the chat, but that is the crux of the classroom home screen. Does anyone have any questions? If so, you can put it on in the chat and give it just a minute.
No questions, Carrie.
Great. And the other thing that I wanted to show you is what the class looks like from a student point of view. So this is my student account. And within my student account, if I go to classroom, I'll still see my course cards. And it has a very similar layout. It has archive classes, settings, but instead of to review, it has to do. So if I'm a student and I click in to do, I can now see all of the items I have to do for specific classes or for all of my classes. I will see the assigned ones, the missing ones, so ones that I haven't done that I was supposed to do, and ones that I finished. I'll also see that calendar of all of my classes. And I can see from here, those two icons are a little different than the teacher ones. So you can open your work. And if I click into this, it'll take me to the classwork page, which we're going to go into later. Or I can go to that class folder in my Google Drive where all of my items are. Is there a way to delete old classes instead of archiving them? That is a good question. I haven't found one, but perhaps if my team knows of a way to do that, let me know. So they may answer you in the chat for that. All right, so on the teacher end, we have 4 different tabs. The first tab is the stream tab, and I like to think of this as really your communication portal with your students. So this is your announcements for the week. This might be taking the place of like a newsletter with your classroom, your morning announcements that you would have, just anything that you want to share with your class. And so within this page, you can customize your course banner. You can also create announcements for your class. And so to show you that, when you click in announce something to your class, you have the option to select which class and which students. And this is nice because sometimes you may not have all of your students that you want to announce the same thing to. So you can select students from the dropdown, and then you can type in your announcement. You'll also notice you can add files from Google Drive, add a video. So maybe you want to have bell work, and within that you want a video. You can upload files, add links. If you hit this drop down next to post, you can post, schedule, or save your announcements. So you can schedule announcements to go out later on. And then when you hit post, it shows up on your stream. Additionally, you'll notice that if you have certain settings turned on, you'll also see a stream that shows all of the work that is posted within your class from the classwork tab. And I'll show you how you can adjust those settings later on. You'll find that you can generate a Meet link. So this is for Google Meet. If you're using that in your classroom, you can click on here and it will generate a Meet link that's visible to students if you want. And that will allow them to join in the future. You can grab your class code to share with students so that they can join your class, and you'll see upcoming work from here. You'll also notice that once you've posted an announcement for your class, you can add in a class comment. So maybe you've forgotten to share something or you want to give additional comments within a comment. You can do that here and it'll go to the whole class. And you can reuse posts. So you can click on this reuse symbol. And you can use different announcements from any class that you have. So if you click into a class, You'll select a post. If there were attachments that you added to it, you can create new copies so that you don't have a workflow issue in the future where you have different, or where you have the same attachments attached to different posts. You can do that, and then you hit reuse, and you'll be able to reuse your post. And if you want to delete or edit a post, you can do that from here. So that's the gist of the announcements or the stream page within the teacher view. And I'm going to pause. I see Alicia and Pam answered the question about deleting a class. So thank you so much for doing that. And then when you jump in to the student view, you'll notice that now I can see what my teacher posted to me. I have the ability right now to add a class comment. So I can say back to my class or my teacher. I don't have the options to edit or delete a post. I can just copy the link to one, and I can see all of the different posts that have happened in the past. I can also join the meet that my teacher set up, and I can see my upcoming work from here. So as I mentioned, there are some elements of the stream that you may not want to have enabled. For example, if you don't want your classwork posted on the stream, or you don't want students to be able to add class comments, you can adjust this. To do that, you would go to the settings icon. Here you can change class details. You can adjust the invite. So you'll notice you can adjust whether settings for invite codes are turned on. You can also adjust within the stream. Can students post and comment? Can students only comment? Only teachers can post or comment. So if you want to restrict the communication, you can do that from here. Additionally, if you don't want to show classwork on the stream, you can hide notifications, you can condense them, or you can add attachments and details. And then there are toggled items such as showing deleted items and guardian summaries. And guardian summaries are email summaries that go out to the guardians that allow them to see missing, upcoming work, class activity. It doesn't allow them to actually see the stream, the classwork, the people, or the grades. It's just kind of a summary that goes out to guardians who have signed in if you allow them to do that. You can see your Meet link. And then we'll talk more about grades later, but here is also where you can adjust your grades. Okay. Looks like we're still good on questions, so I'm going to jump into the classwork tab. The classwork tab is really the crux of your classroom. This is where you are going to add assignments, quizzes, materials, everything that you would want your students to do within your classroom. That's going to be from the classwork tab. And so you can go to this create button, and there are multiple different types of content you can create. The first one we'll do is an assignment, and that's just because a lot of them look very similar, so I'll just point out some nuances between them. But within assignment, you have the title, the instructions pane, the ability to add attachments, and I will show you one of these types of attachments just so that you can see some other elements. So if we have a Google Drive thing that we want to add to our assignment, I can add it in. And you'll notice now, as soon as I add in Google content, we have some options on how students can interact with that content. Students can view file as the default, but you can also allow students to edit the file, or, and this one's my favorite, make a copy for each student. So this way, each student can work within the document or the spreadsheet or whatever content it is, but they won't be adjusting the content that you've already created, which is what would happen if students could edit the file. They'd each be working on the same file, and the editing gets a little bit messy. So making a copy is a really good option. After you've done that, you can select which class it applies to. You can also select which students. And so again, for differentiation, if you have different students who are having different assignments, you have center models, things like that, you can then go in and select which students you want to share this with. You can adjust the point scale or make it ungraded. You can set a due date, which then will show up in the calendar for you and your students. You can set a topic, and this is really useful for organization as you're creating your classroom. So I always do like to create topics just to keep things organized and clean. And so this one could be assignments. And you add your topic. And then you have rubrics. So if you want to create a rubric, you can do that from an assignment by adding in your criterion and then setting up points, titles, and descriptions. The other thing you can do is you can go in and reuse a rubric. So I've already created a rubric that I want to use. I'm going to select it from here. And then you also have this check plagiarism option. And the check plagiarism option is basically checking your work for authenticity. So when you run a plagiarism report, it compares your student's Google document to web pages and books on the internet, and then basically highlights and flags uncited text that your student might have. So you can check that, and then you can do the originality reports. And as it says, there are reports limits that you can do. So I have 5 assignments remaining. I'm not going to choose to do it for this, but you can use it for 5 of your assignments if you have major ones that you want to focus on with your students. Then from the drop down, you can decide whether you want to schedule or save your draft, or you can assign it to your students. Okay. Looking at the chat, it looks like there is just a request to talk about how to delete classrooms again. So we will add that back into the chat. And then I'm going to jump in. Oop, I think I heard someone unmute. Does anyone have a question? So I'm going to jump into the other types of materials that you can add and just point out the differences. So like I said, a lot of the things within Google Classroom are streamlined. So if you know how to do it within the stream or within assignments, you can do it within quizzes or questions. So just a few small differences. When you add an assignment that's a quiz, you'll notice it automatically adds in a Google form. So instead of having to go to Drive and selecting a type of content or going to create and selecting a form, you automatically have a form here that you can click into. And then you can title and set up your quiz like you normally would using Google Forms. Additionally, some unique features of the quiz ones are that you can turn on grade importing. And so when you turn on grade importing, what that does is it imports grades directly from your forms. So if you have it turned on as a quiz, it'll import those grades directly into the student work page and the grades page. So that's a useful feature for you that you can turn on. And then other than that, it's very similar. So you set your classes, you set your topics, you can check for plagiarism, and then you can assign. And just a note, you'll notice the assign is grayed out. The reason is because I don't have a title for this assignment. I see there's a question about the rubrics. So do you just assign point values? Yes. So when you go into the rubrics, it allows you to set a criteria, and then it allows you to go in and add point values and a description. And so you go through and you just kind of add it as you would generally create a rubric on like a Google Doc or something like that using a table. You just use whatever criterion you want, set your point scores, and then you can utilize that as you are doing the assignment. So from
Hi, Carrie. Can I just answer Tanya's question?
Please. Yeah.
So Tanya, it could be because if you have options for some and not others, could be because you're co-teacher on it. In the drop down, you should, of all the classes that you created, you should have if it's archived, you should be able to delete it. Can you clarify if that's just not happening?
Yeah, the one I am trying to delete, I did create it and that's not offering me the option, but then I have another one where it is. So I may have it was a club with students and I may have put like a co-collaborator as with the student. Would that be then I wouldn't be able to have that option?
That could have an impact on it, yes.
Okay. All right. I'll investigate more. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thanks, Alicia. The next type of material that you can create is a question. And so this is something like a discussion prompt where you would ask a question of students and then they're able to submit either a short answer or a multiple choice. But usually I found you would do short answer, so you can use it like a discussion. You can add in all of the same types of content. And then the two different features here are that you can check whether students can reply to each other. And so if you do this, and I'll demonstrate what it looks like from the students' end, students have the opportunity to read each other's work and then respond to each other. And you can also check whether students can go back and edit their answers. And so those are the differences with the questions. You can create materials, and the materials are really just resources for your students. And so you'll notice there's not as much on there about due dates or times or anything like that. And the reason for that is because you're just providing a material or a resource for your student that they can use in the future. So you just have that title and the ability to attach content, and it will be there for them. And the last thing that you can do from here is reuse a post. And so you can jump into any class that you have and you can click into something that you've already created and you can reuse that within your new class. And if you want to, you can create all new copies of the attachments so that you, again, don't have any kind of mix-ups with which class is seeing what attachments. And then you hit reuse. And there is from here the option to create topics too. And you'll notice the topics look like this. So they're in blue and you can pull and drag and drop your different elements or your different assignments into the right assignment spots, quiz spots, anything like that. And so this is what your classwork ends up looking like on the teacher end. Any questions on that? Okay. Oh.
Can you show us again how to do that? Real
Which
quick.
one? Which
The
one?
dragging and
Dragging?
dropping.
Sure. So once, and I'll just create a new topic.
The one that you just did.
Yep. So when you create a topic, you just hit create topic, and I'll just do a sample. It turns up in blue. And then I basically just pull with the left side of my mouse and drag and drop it underneath whatever topic I want it to go into. So it's just quick drag and drop. And then it's all set up and organized for me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So from the student point of view, they see all of the different classwork in a similar manner, but they'll have different nuances. So if you go to the classwork tab as a student, they also will see your topics and they will see this option to view your work. This is going to give them a clear view of everything that they need to do in one page. And they can see then if they want to look at their assigned work, their missing work, or their returned work. So that's a useful view for students. Additionally, for students, they can click into things. And for example, assignments, they'll see if you've added a rubric, and you'll notice here those points and how many criterion we have. They'll see the rubric, they'll see their work, and they can click directly into that and work in a document. And so I'm gonna just click open in a new tab so I don't mess up my organization. And now you can see I just have this, which was made as a separate copy for me. And so the way that I know it's a separate copy, when I clicked on that make a copy for each student, it comes up with my name in front of it. And so that's the naming convention when you create a copy for each student. Then they basically just work into this. And if they want to view the instructions for this assignment, they hit view instructions. From here, they'll see the point value. This is also where they'll see when it's graded, how many points they got. They'll see the instruction. They'll see the rubric. They'll see an opportunity to add a class comment and if any class comments have been made. And then from here, they can also click in here to work in the document. They can add or create new documents. So maybe the assignment was for them to actually create their own document or a slideshow in addition to something else. And so they can add that in. And as soon as they're done, they just hit turn in. And then they will have the option to turn it in, which I will do. And now it's going to turn into my teacher. I have the option to unsubmit it if I'd like. And I can also add comments that go privately to my teacher from here. So that is what it looks like for assignment. Questions are slightly different. And so if they go into view question, they'll have the option to type in their answer. And so what topic am I most related or most interested in? I'm interested in assistive technology. I hit turn in. Once I've turned it in, now you'll see the screen is a little bit different. So now I have the option to see my classmates' answers and reply to them. So if I had a classmate, which in this class I don't, who had answered, I could see it from here, or I could see it from here. And then I could go in and I can reply to my classmates. So this keeps an ongoing conversation. Additionally, oh, and the other thing to point out is just that there are color conventions. So you'll notice when there are things that are assigned, they're in green. Once I've turned them in or they're graded, they are in black. And so as you see things and red is missing, as you see things, the color conventions do matter in that it tells you whether it's assigned, turned in, graded, or missing. If you have a quiz as a student, you can work directly in the quiz. I select my favorite, or in this case, it was a question. Which one allows us to post on a collaborative board? That's Edpuzzle. I would hit submit. And now I can view my score. If I had import grade, then my grade will be imported into the grade book. I can also view the instructions and mark this as done or add in additional content. And then this one was also an assignment, so I'll leave that one. Yes.
You have two questions that I think would probably benefit if you showed. Oh, Chris answered the one about the rubrics, but Chad wants to have has some questions regarding the reuse of post. Do they all show up in the window page?
In the window page. So when you go to classwork and you reuse a post, you have the option to see from any of your different classes. And then once you select a class, you do see all of the different posts that you've created for that class. Is that what you mean?
Chad, is that what you meant?
Yeah, he posted yes in the chat.
Perfect. And I do see Chris answered or provided a great answer for why rubrics are beneficial, and they definitely do contribute to making sure that you are streamlining and being objective in your assessments. So they are a useful tool. All right. So that is the student view of the classwork page. And like I mentioned, you get to see a lot of different things as a student. So it's always worthwhile to kind of see it from the student view too. And then the other thing that happens when you are a teacher, so I jump back into my teacher, if I go in and I look at my assignments, my questions, and I hit the view instructions, I get this panel that allows me to see my instructions and then a tab for student work. And so now I can go into my student work section and I can see how many were turned in, how many things are still left assigned, adjust if I'm accepting submissions. So maybe I don't want to accept student submissions anymore. I can toggle that off. I can see my students' work, and I really like this. When you click into a student, you can then go into see history. And if I've changed any of the grading, so maybe I deleted a grade, I'm regrading it, I can go in and I can see the history of the grade. And so right now I haven't graded anything, as you can see from the no grade, so there's nothing there. But this is a good option to see what you've gone through. If maybe you've had them return it and then resubmit it, maybe you've updated the grading. You can also see your rubric and type into the rubric score from here. You can add private comments from here, and you can adjust if you want to turn it into an ungraded assignment from here. Additionally, you can type in the score from here. And on the 3-dot options, once I've scored it, I can hit return to student. So you can do this from 2 spots within Classroom. You can do it from the student work page within the classwork tab, or you can do it from gradebook. They both work. I'm just going to return this one. I can add a private comment, and then I hit return. And now you'll notice when I go back into my classwork that that will be a returned. It'll change what it says on it. It'll say graded. And then as a student, the student can refresh and they'll now see, I forget which one I just graded, professional success. I think it's this one. It's graded now. And so my student can now see that they've graded it. Nope, wrong one. But all right, looks like there's still no questions. So I will jump in and show you the people tab. And this is my student one. So I'm going to jump in and show you from my teacher. This is the people tab under teacher. And within the people tab, this is where teachers can invite co-teachers. And so you can type in a name or an email. And if you add co-teachers, they can do everything that you can in terms of grading, classwork, adding announcements. The only thing they can't do is delete your class, which may have been some of the things that were going wrong with deleting classes before. So that's something to remember, that they do have the ability to do all of those elements within your class. You can also select students. So you can select all your students, specific students, and from there you can email, remove, or mute students. So if you want to send an email out to them, an email is interesting within Google Classroom because you do have to have administration turn on email for your account. So we actually don't have that. You'll notice it's grayed out. And the reason for that is just because within our account, we don't have email turned on. The other thing to know about emailing your students is that you can send to 100 email recipients at once, and only one class can be emailed at a time. So just some nuances for the email there. Additionally, this is another place where you can send those guardian emails if you have email and you have that setting toggled over. You'll notice within my student one, they only have this teachers. And the students usually do have an option to email their teachers and their classmates if they have them. But because we don't have email enabled, there's no little email icon that allows them to email back to their teachers or to other students. Okay. So that's the people page. And then the last part of Google Classroom is the grading portion. And so you can use grading within Google Classroom. It's super streamlined, and we've seen kind of how you do that in multiple places already. But I do want to point out some settings you can toggle over. I also want to point out just the grading tab by itself. And then there are some elements that you can do with SIS integrations if you use them. And so in your job aid, I link to a whole document on that in case that's something that's interesting to you. So within the grades tab, you'll see it looks just like a grade book. And here you'll be able to see what you've already scored. If you've already scored it, or if you haven't, you'll see the opportunity to return the work if you hadn't done that, and to view the submission. So if I want to see the student's work again, I can jump in and I can view the submission. And this is really nice because it shows you what your student's work looks like. So you see their Google document, you see the option to grade it directly, you see the rubric criteria. So it tells me I set it as 4 points is outstanding, 3 points well done, 2 points adequate, 1 point, and then I can go in and I can adjust which one of my rubric criteria it is. I can also continue to add private comments. And as I'm done with this one, I can just jump right into the next student when I have it. I can also hit the return button directly from here. So this is a great view for teachers as you're going through information. So for example, on this one, I can view my student's question. My student wrote assistive technology. I can reply back. I can add private comments. I can grade them from here. All of these options directly from that screen. And so that is the grade book. You can also delete things if you don't want to have them anymore as categories, and you can return everything all at once. And so if there are multiple submissions, you can just quickly do that. You can sort. And then within the settings, if I scroll down, you'll see that there are grading settings. And so you can adjust how you calculate grades. You can do it by total points. You can do no overall grade if you just want to collect information but not have an overall grade. And you can weight it by category. If you weight it by category, the percentages that you do will need to then add up to 100% for you to save it. If you want to show students the overall grade, you can toggle that over. And then you can click into add grade category. And because I weighted it, you'll notice then I have to go in, and if this is 20%, I need to add more categories to add up to 80% more so that I can save my grading categories. When you're done with setting those, you'll hit save. And so that is the grading, and that's how you set up grading categories and determine how you're going to grade. And then, like I mentioned before, you can tell from the classwork page, when you go into it and you go to view instructions, you can see student work and you can grade from there as well. Okay. Any questions? I saw the chat was pretty populated, so.
I think we've answered the questions. Somebody was just asking about what parents can see and what they can't see. So I put some information in and I gave a link for more information.
Perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to also just put in the chat, and it's in your job aid as well, but there are different SIS instructions. And so depending on the account that you have and what SIS you're using, you have different instructions for how you would export to it. So I'll put that in the chat right now. And then the other thing, which we weren't able to demo today, but it's in your job aid, and I'll share it in the chat too, but I will show a video for it, is if you have the Google Suite or Google Workplace Plus account, you can do something called practice sets, and practice sets are really cool. So I am going to show a quick video since I can't demo it live, and then I'll share it in the chat too. So just give me 1 second to share it in the chat. All right, and I'm going to make sure my sound is sharing. Okay. Oh no, this may not work. So give me just a second. If it doesn't work, I may have to have one of my colleagues share this video.
hate to ask this, did you push the button for the volume?
I did. Yeah.
Isn't always possible with the learning tools that exist today. For educators, is personal. Students stay more engaged and learn more effectively when they get feedback right away. But one-on-one help for each student isn't always possible with the learning tools that exist today. For educators, having a round-the-clock tutor for each student that could help them grade classwork and give insights into student comprehension would be ideal. That's why we're creating a new tool in Google Classroom called Practice Sets, which enables educators to create interactive assignments from their existing content or from scratch. Students can get help as they answer questions, and teachers can get automated insights to know where students are getting stuck. Let's take a look at how it works. Once teachers create practice sets using existing content or by writing their own questions, our adaptive learning technology identifies the relevant learning skills for each question and finds relevant hints and resources that will be available for students if they need help. With all the typical question types like multiple choice and short answer, practice sets also have a built-in math keyboard and use our adaptive learning technology to enable equivalent answers for robust auto-grading. Teachers assign practice sets in Google Classroom like any other assignment. Students open practice sets right from an assignment in Google Classroom. As they work, auto-grading lets them know right away if their solution is correct, which helps build confidence, keeps them engaged, and prevents one misunderstanding from impacting the entire set. If they don't get a question on the first try, built-in hints help them along. When a student is unsure of where to start, they can open a resources section, which provides recommended videos and concept cards for each learning skill. Additional features include designated space to show their work, allowing them to demonstrate understanding while giving their teacher visibility into their thinking. For assignments created with practice sets, you will have enhanced features in the Classroom Grader view. Teachers get a quick view of class performance and can see student work for every attempt they make per problem. Automated insights reveal class-wide trends, so teachers gain visibility and can adjust their teaching plan if many students struggle with the same question or concept. With practice sets, students get the help they need faster, and teachers get actionable insights about their class. We understand that no two learning journeys are the same, so we're building tools that work for you.
So those are available if you have certain plans, including the Plus plan or the Enterprise Edition for your Google Classroom. So that would be something if you're checking in with your administration, your IT department to find out what type you have. And if you did have it, you would see it within, let me jump back in, you would see it within your demo class under classwork when you create an assignment. It would be one of the options here. So, and then just a couple of other things that I think are useful in terms of grading from that people page as a teacher. When you click in to your people, you can see the grades from here. So that's very useful for you. The other thing that I find to be useful is when you go into classwork and you go into the view instructions from a student work page. In addition to seeing the score, being able to return like we've talked about, you can also go into the settings and you can copy grades to Google Sheets. So if you're utilizing the whole Google Workspace, you can have your grades copy over into the Google Sheets. You can download all grades as a CSV, or you can download just a specific grade set as a CSV too. So that might be useful. And there is the option to email from here, whatever student is selected on the student work panel, if you have email enabled. So those are just some grading things. And I want to show you as my student, this is my student one. If I go into classwork and I want to see my grades, you'll see that I find it's graded And then when I go into view instructions, I can see my grades here. I can see the private comment to my professor here, and I can add a private comment back. And so as you move through this, you'll just notice that there are some streamlined places that you can go to as a student and a teacher to see all of these different elements within the different tabs. So classwork for seeing your grades, but also for getting your classwork, and then grades just for grades, people for any kind of email contact, and then stream for announcements and communication that way. And so just to point you back to your resources, you have the slide deck for today. You also have here your job aid for Google Classroom that goes over all of this, including the link to the practice sets and the SIS integration. And then you have a student guide to Google Classroom that if you're starting to integrate this with your students, it might be useful to just share this with them. It's a super quick document, and they can find screenshots of what to expect depending on what they are doing within the classroom. All right, so we're a few minutes early, but we do have time for questions, and
Mary,
if any of my
question?
co-presenters want to share.
Question, will a co-teacher be able to see the grades? Also see grades?
Yes, so the co-teacher will be able to basically do whatever you do except for delete classes. Thank you, Chris. And my team, is there anything else that you want to add about Google Classroom?
Regarding integration with the SIS, if your district allows that, I would contact your IT professional to find out. It's really a great feature, and it feeds directly into the grade book. So I know that a lot of districts do that, and it is a good feature. It really makes things streamlined.
Yeah, it can create the classes for you and automatically enroll your students. Carrie, does Google Classroom translate some instructions in Spanish or other languages?
That is a good question. I do know that if you're adding in content from Google, you would be able to use the Google Translate feature. So for example, if you have an assignment that you've created within, let's go back into here. If you're creating a new assignment and you're adding in something from your drive or something from Create, then you can go into that, and I'll just do it right here. You can go into tools and you can translate documents from here. So I definitely know that the content that you're adding can be translated. I don't know if anyone on my team knows whether the course itself, I would assume it can be, but I haven't seen it in the settings to do any kind of translation of the content. The other thing I will say is that there are Chrome apps that you can add, such as the Immersive Readers one that works on web pages. And so you could use the Immersive Reader to read the screen, and then that would translate it for your students. And it looks like, yeah, so Chris said Google Classroom doesn't have built-in translation, but okay, perfect. Yep. So things like Google Translate as a Chrome extension, and you can get to Chrome extensions from the Chrome Web Store. You could do Translate, you can do Immersive Reader, and any of those will read the Google content to you in a different language.
Carrie, if you're on the main page, if you right click anywhere in the white space, so go into a classroom.
Oh, okay.
I think maybe you can do it from there too. And
Translate to English.
Click on that. I just read this, so I learned something new today, and it should bring up. Are you seeing another thing that we don't see?
Yes. So it says it allowed me to choose another language, and then I can select. Oh, very cool. Thanks, Pam. Thank you for that great question too. So you can translate it. I just did translate to French, and now it's translated to French. Oh, that's awesome. So for those of you, I'm not sure how much you were able to see, but step by step, I right-clicked into the white of my classroom, and then I went to translate to English on the drop down.
Think you know Wix.
And then that pulled up the detected language. It detects the language, and then the 3-dot option allows you to choose a different language. Great question, Maria.
That is so cool.
That is
Cool.
really cool.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So what I did, and I'm going to translate back to English, I right clicked just on any, and I think it would work. I'll just go to a different page so you can see. Right click into the white space, then go to translate to French in this case. And then there's a box that I'm seeing that you're not seeing, but maybe I can take a screenshot of it really quickly so you can see it. I'll share it in the chat. I am seeing a box that looks like what I'm sharing in the chat that says detected language is French. And then once I have done that, and my screen is freaking out, hold on. Once I did that, I was able to go to the 3-dot icon, and the 3-dot icon allows me to choose from a huge menu of languages. And so within the chat, I am going to share a screenshot. Let's find it. Here you go. And so that was what I was seeing. And then I'm seeing this. And that gets your whole thing translated, which is amazing. All right. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but you're welcome to continue to ask questions. We have a little bit more time. And if not, I'll also stop recording.
I have a question.
Mhm.
One of my co-teachers uses Google Classroom to do all his grading and to make it easier on him. Well, if I give a worksheet or we do an assignment that's not on the Google Classroom, how do I put it in as an assignment that I'm just gonna go ahead and put the grades in for that grade holder, but the kids don't have to turn it in? I tried doing that, but it seemed to mess up the grading system.
So you don't want to add an assignment
Okay.
to, I'm just trying to make sure I understand your question. So you don't want to actually add it to an assignment. You just want to add a grade.
Yes. So let's say I gave them a vocabulary worksheet and then I collected them, I hand scored them, but I want to put them into the Google Classroom so that when I do my grading for the end of the quarter, that it incorporates that grade into it.
Got it. Let me see really quickly. My screen is now in French, so I'm trying to un-French or get it out of French, which it is not doing for me. Give me 1 second.
Since that's a really individual question, do you want to hold off on that to see if there's anybody that has a more general question so we can look at that towards the end?
Perfect.
And if nobody has any more general questions, then we can move on with that one. I just want to make sure everybody's taken care of. It looks like